You are listening to Lovely Talks Heavy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lovely Talks Heavy. I am your host, Lovely, and I discuss everything I enjoy with regard to heavy music. I figured today's episode would be a bit more laid back. I'd offer a few updates on what's been going on with me and some thoughts that have been floating around inside this tin can I call a head. If you're not into my personal shenanigans and only ever care about metal, you can feel free to skip this episode. I won't entirely fault you for it, but come on, let's be real. I'm an interesting fucking person, so why wouldn't you? I'm doing this episode like this because at the time that I'm writing this and recording this, actually now, I'm in a bit of a depressive slump. Thankfully, it's not so debilitating as to prevent me from being able to write the script and narrate it to you, record it, edit it, and, care about the overall quality of it. It's not so debilitating, so that I can, basically do it so that I can't do it. Anyways. I don't think I've mentioned it before on this podcast, but during the 2 weeks that I took off after my Black and Metal episode because of depression and needing to just catch up with myself, I started drinking a lot more tea and cut out Dr. Pepper from my diet. Dr. Pepper is my most favorite soda ever, like the only sort of sugared caffeine that I'll make myself consume. And it showed in the amounts of it that I consumed, which is to say, inhuman. A side effect of that, however, was the impact of how I felt my depression. I really hadn't thought about it before then, but in effect, my favorite soda was making my depression worse. I had been meaning to slowly wean myself off it, drinking less and less a day, but a certain flaw I've observed of myself is that practicing moderation is a difficult concept for me a lot of the time, only thinking in terms of before and after, or in terms of extremes, which I try to, move myself somewhere in the middle sometimes, to reconcile some sort of personal beliefs and thoughts that I have about certain things, but it's like, sometimes it's difficult, and I need to step back a lot of the time from certain conversations to make myself understand things better, on top of the fact that I have a slow process of processing things mentally because my brain was manufactured by Apple in 1993, it feels like, and I don't have any software updates helping me there. But I've dived off the track of this whole script. Where the fuck am I? Right here. Okay. It's difficult to practice moderation. In this case, it's easy to practice the before and after parts of the process, but hard to think about the in-between stages. It's easy in the before part of it because you're already in it, You know at the very least vaguely what it feels like, even if you're unsure of articulating what it means or how it affects you. And it's easy to think about the after part of the process because it's a vague concept that's not really tangible. You're not in it, so all you can say is, oh, I just kind of want that thing. But a lot of times it's difficult getting there, understanding what steps need to be taken, it's understanding what needs to really transform into allow that transformation to happen, what needs to change, what steps need to be taken. I'm saying the same thing like 3 different ways, as I tend to do sometimes, but anyways, I'm gonna say the same thing in a different way this time, though. It was easy to say my daily Dr. Pepper consumption nets at least 5 cans a day, and I want to change that to 0 to 1 cans a day. It's more difficult moving through that in-between stage. My brain chemistry, which is prone to addiction, is a more significant factor in this, no doubt. However, it's something that I don't think I'm equipped to explain or understand or, further talk about at this point, which I will talk about further in the sense that when I say addictive personality, it's not in the sense of like drugs and alcohol. I've never consumed any sort of drug aside from caffeine. I do like alcohol, but I've never had consumed inhuman amounts of it to the point where it would be cause for concern. I do want to point out that addiction is applicable to things other than drugs and alcohol, which can have its own harmful effects outside of those contexts, which is easy to think about because it's drugs and alcohol, but don't really need to explain myself here, but I just want to point out it can be harmful in other senses. Moving on. With my depression at this point, in a metaphorical sense, when I am manic or feeling good and functional, I am running at a fast pace. A lot of tasks that I want to or need to get done, and it doesn't feel so intimidating approaching those tasks. However, when I'm in the slumps, depressed, baseline mood, sad, it's like tripping and falling from that fast run, and it's a difficult thing to even crawl. Easy things feel difficult and intimidating, and when I want to do something in my brains go, do you really? You really shouldn't, because who the fuck cares? When I finally get up from that fall, it's usually after having gathered enough energy to get back into the fast run. It doesn't occur to me that I could walk or light jog, but a lot of the time I'm more concerned with catching up with the stuff I've put off in the recovery. Add the inhuman amounts of Dr. Pepper that I drank in that situation, not only have I fallen, but there's a heavy weight on my back holding me down until I gain enough strength to shake it off of me. So, after I ran out of Dr. Pepper in that break that I took between episodes, I stopped buying it, started drinking tea with soy milk instead. The tea tastes great, I don't feel as depressed in my slumps, and not as often. It's great. When I trip and fall, I can at the very least bring myself to stand, perhaps walk a little. Do I miss Dr. Pepper? Abso-fucking-lutely. Possibly because my body is still trying to fathom an existence without it, the inhuman amounts of it that I consumed, up to my fucking chest in it at some days. And it's hard to, like, get through the whole jitters and cravings that I feel trying not to relapse every time I go into Kroger. Moving on. What I don't miss about Dr. Pepper, though, is all of the shit I put myself through in a depressive slump, exacerbated by it. All the sort of, depressed thoughts, the futility, the exacerbated nihilism I feel on a daily basis. The thoughts that just say, you're worthless, you're stupid, you should have fucking died a long time ago. I don't necessarily miss that. Do I still have those thoughts and feelings? Yes, but not quite as often now that I've cut out Dr. Pepper. Weirdly enough. Will I drink it again, though? Yes, and I have, but only in circumstances where I'm going out, perhaps, and I'll only have one, where the environment is more controlled, outside of my own circumstances. But inside of my own circumstances, I am controlling my own environment and, not buying the shit and drinking tea. Oh my fucking Christ. I'm not gonna bring a stockpile into my home ever again. It's let's not say ever again. Well, I'm working towards not needing to or wanting to bring a stockpile into my home. What's the point of this sort of reflection? Well, it's to prove a point of how there are little things where one in my situation can do to help themselves. Taking Dr. Pepper out of my diet is just one step in improving myself and helping myself deal with the depression where I'm at right now. The absence of Dr. Pepper isn't a cure-all for my depression, or dare I say anybody's. I'm not a psychiatrist, but it is something that will help better deal with it. My next step is bringing myself to actually use the therapy website I signed up for, which talking to new people is a difficult thing because I'm a nervous wreck a lot of the time when it comes to social situations, especially ones where I don't feel equipped to take it on, but hey, we gotta get somewhere, And I didn't write this part in, but I do want to point out, if you have felt yourself in a situation where I've described myself, I encourage you to try something small to help yourself, For instance, if you feel like there's no point in taking showers sometimes because you're not leaving the house, or, maybe you're too depressed to shower, I encourage you to, take that big step and, take a shower, because it's amazing what that does for you and how much better you can feel after that. Just that little thing can have a huge impact, and I encourage you to do something small for yourself to help yourself feel better. And I do encourage you to seek help too, if you can, where you can, if you have, if you don't want to be alone and you can't afford therapy or something, or you don't have access to a free therapy website, which I'll link the one I signed up for in the description of this episode. But if you don't feel like those are feasible avenues of help for you, go out with some friends and just hang out at some point, It's little things that can have a really big impact, and I encourage you to pursue those, and I wish you the best of luck. Another thing I wanted to talk about was my birthday. I had a lot of fun turning 25. My friends and I went out to a couple of bars. I got massively drunk, put a few dollars in the jukebox, and danced like a fucking fool to Night Witches by Sabaton, among some other songs, including, yes, Heart Work by Carcass. I made some new friends with friends of my friends. The alcohol helped a lot. Had ridiculous conversations regarding the Venn diagram of my cinematic consumption pursuits and whether or not Pride and Prejudice was a musical. Because, hey, wasn't Hugh Jackman in a musical Pride and Prejudice? No, he's been in musicals, but Pride and Prejudice isn't a musical. I'm pretty sure it is. Maybe, but not in the sense I'm thinking. Did you mean Les Miserables? Oh, yeah. I was the half of that conversation. While drunk, knew very well for certain that Hugh Jackman wasn't in Pride and Prejudice. Anyways, moving on. I had a girl also tell me that I was pretty, which was super validating. A couple of friends got me gifts, one of which was a box to hold and organize all of the tea that I've been drinking, which I love and I have been putting to great use. Another gift I got was a Funko Pop figure of Eric Killmonger from the cinematic masterpiece Black Panther. I love him, and he's standing on my desk with all of the other Funkos Pop that I haven't boxed up and put away so that I could have space in my room for stuff more conducive to writing and creating. Anyways, another gift, which I will claim completely for myself, is that my friend Tino, who I know is listening, hi Tino, also compiled a mix of songs from 1993 onto his Mixcloud profile, which I absolutely loved. I will link it in the description of this episode so you can get a listen for yourself. It was the most fun I had celebrating my birthday in a long time. Now though, even though I've only had 25 complete revolutions around this sun behind me for a few weeks, it's weird to think that I really am this old. Considering 25 is a bit of a landmark age, you're a bit forced to think about it. Perhaps I'm a bit sad because I figured I'd be more accomplished at this age. Though the problem with that is, my interests shift if I don't get as accomplished with them as I expected to. Like, if I make one art piece and suddenly people aren't calling me the next Van Gogh, or as people outside of the Dutch-speaking language refer to him as a Van Gogh. If I'm not the next great artist, basically, then I'm like, okay, fine, I see what y'all think of me, moving on to something else. Hey, please, somebody tell me how amazing I am. The fact that I require a lot of validation is a very telling thing about me. It's a thing I've been, like, trying to, it's again one of those, like, extreme sense of thinking and working towards, but it's complicated. I'm not gonna say dumb, because I almost wanted to say that, but it's not dumb. It's difficult to wrap my head around sometimes, the actual work required to get into the end stages that I really want to be in. Moving on. There's also a fear of failure with those interests, grown from a life of being silenced, being made to feel ashamed of myself for being different, and not being allowed to fully pursue interests. Thanks, Mom. I want to do better in life, but it's difficult when your ability to pursue that was inhibited, fostering a fear of that pursuit, because shame and guilt come if I dare do it. All of that couples with the societal pressure to make an amazing life and career before the age of 30, and oh boy, yikes, man. Despite that shame, there are some things I take pride in, this podcast for one. There's also my extensive knowledge of Metalocalypse, my ability to make art with colored pencils and acrylic paint, the story I crafted for my Dungeons and Dragons group, and there were some more, I'm sure, but those were off the top of my head as I wrote the script. You know, another weird thing about being 25 is probably the fact that I've been made to feel like a kid my whole life, and I still do feel like it. You know, probably coupled with the fact that I'm not in the place where I expected to be at this age. And that probably couples with the fact that I have interests in stuff like superheroes and fucking Pretty Cure and Sailor Moon, but I don't know, it's like weird. Plus, whenever I mention any interest or, excitement towards any of that, my mom's always like, when are you gonna get into adult stuff? And it's like, every time I like anything more mature than, this sort of thing, it's like, okay, what's the fucking point? So you can see where I kind of grew my futile, nihilistic sort of worldview. Let's move on, shall we? Let's talk about something that's, on the whole, more fun and lighthearted. If you follow my Twitter, you might guess that I've taken a bit of an interest in Jeff Goldblum for the longest time. For nearly 25 slutty years, my eyes were closed to Jeff Goldblum. I've heard people talk about him, thirsty as hell for him. I've never seen his face, really, in that context, and I was just like, whatever. I never had an interest in the Jurassic Park film starring the man ever, because I'm just not into dinosaurs or paleontology or anything like that, and I just thought it was sort of a fun museum featuring dinosaurs, which that was the intent of the whole thing, but, it's like, whatever. But then, Thor Ragnarok was the film that happened. May Powerwolf Jesus bless the man, the icon, the legend, Taika Waititi for this film. And it featured Jeff Goldblum in the role of the Grand Master, and since the film came out, since I've seen gifs and memes and posts about him and his orgy ship, I had to rethink my life choices. It took him being in a Marvel film, which I would undoubtedly already love, to open my eyes to him. The one flaw of that film being the fact that I had to see the face of Burlington Coat Factory. Burlington Coat Factory is the joke version of the name Benedict Cumberbatch, which I will stick to for forever, because I hate the man. I just hate him. Why did he have to be in this film? Anyways, right now I'm about as hyperfixated onto Jeff Goldblum as I was onto Chris Angel when I was in high school, and if you knew me in high school, you'd understand the extent of the power behind that statement, and you would feel very frightened right now. As you should be. I watched the Jurassic Park films for the first time last week, and oh boy, I can exactly see why they're so iconic and good. Not just for the thirst trap that I fell into that is Jeff Goldblum, though that helps too. I mean, I do like the other stuff that the film brings up, the idea of chaos and whether or not we should pursue things even if we really want to, and all that stuff. I'm sorry, the image of Jeff Goldblum, leaning with his shirt open is in my brain right now, and I'm a very shallow person for it. I've been where was I? There it is. I've been watching at least one film a night and falling super in love. Granted, not everything is quite the masterpiece that Independence Day or Jurassic Park were. I'm looking right in the direction of the fucking cinematic smash hits, Cats and Dogs, and also Earth Girls are easy, but regardless, I'm having a lot of fun. Speaking of Cats and Dogs, though, it was a film that I really, really liked as a kid, but my focus as a kid was more on the cats and dogs all over the place. It was fun to revisit it, seeing the bad CGI, being pleasantly surprised to see Miriam Margolyes was in this film, and pondering exactly how and where dogs could get the technology required to make and operate their own underground organization, a la the CIA, FBI, or NTSFSDSUV. Definitely it's not something to watch if you're seeking some revolutionary, life-changing story, but it is something fun to watch with children if you have any in your life. So tell me, what is your favorite Goldblum film? I want to know. One final thing before we wrap up today's episode. More related actually to content posted onto my Twitter feed. I made a tweet just mentioning / joking about the number of sticky notes stuck on my desk and wall with a bunch of ideas and tasks. These ideas relate to what I want to do in the future with this podcast, like somehow getting the aforementioned Goldblum to talk in the way that he does, trying to navigate the concepts of heavy metal, and creative projects I want to pursue, like video essays ranging from different topics with regard to my pop culture consumption. There is, needless to say, a lot going on with these sticky notes. There's a lot I want to do, but I know it's going to take a while to do them all. Despite this, I think at least the creative pursuits would be fun to explore, so maybe look out for a video essay at some point in the future. Not exactly near future, not exactly sure of what the topic is I'm going to focus on right away is, since again, it's gonna take a while. Another of the notes regarding ideas for the podcast entertain the thought of incorporating listener feedback and comments into the show, like all of the hip raging podcasts do. Raging podcasts? All the hip podcasts do. Just have a section dedicated to that. I'm not sure what the exact setup would entail yet, but do let me know what you think of that, and if you have any suggestions for what the setup should be, do let me know. I'm very interested in what you have to offer. So with that said, thank you for listening to this episode of Lovely Talks Heavy. If you enjoyed it, if you find any of this sort of rambling about, around, and away from the script entertaining, share it with a friend. Every time this podcast hits a new set of ears, it means the absolute world to me. If you wanna... If you have any sort of feedback or comments regarding any of the sort of content in this episode or any past episodes of this podcast, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Mixcloud, and Tumblr. I am LovelyMetalhead. Hit me up there. Follow me, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Retweet, reblog, all that good stuff. So that my brand can be spread across the world like the Cybermen, only not so terrifying and Orwellian? I don't know. Until next week, next Saturday, the next episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, you stay brutal, my friends. Bye.